Hi Reddit. I'm 31 male, and this story is a long one, so buckle up. I'm posting because I recently had an encounter with someone from my past, and while I feel justified in how I handled it, I can't shake the feeling that maybe I could have been more gracious. So here's the whole story. About 3 years ago, I was working a comfortable but unfulfilling corporate job. The pay was great, and I had the stability most people dream of. I was dating Lisa, 29 female at the time, a woman who loved the finer things in life. Lisa was the kind of person who always wanted to be in the trendiest restaurants, shopping for designer clothes, and traveling to exotic destinations. When I was flush with cash, I didn't mind. I enjoyed spoiling her, and honestly, her enthusiasm for luxury was kind of infectious. But deep down, I wasn't happy. I had this idea for a tech startup that I was passionate about. It wasn't just a random whim. I'd been working on it during nights and weekends for years, refining it until I felt confident it could succeed. The only problem was that to turn my vision into reality, I needed to quit my job and dive in full time. I sat Lisa down one evening and explained my plan. I told her I believed in my idea, that I thought it could change our lives. I also told her it would be tough, money would be tight, and we'd have to scale back on luxuries for a while. At first, she nodded and said she understood. But as time went on, her actions told a different story. In the beginning, Lisa tried to be supportive, or at least she pretended to be. She'd say things like, "I know you're doing this for us," or "I believe in you." But as the months rolled on, her patience wore thin. The fancy dinners stopped. The weekend getaways stopped. Instead of expensive date nights, I was suggesting movie nights at home or cooking dinner together. Lisa started making little comments. "We haven't gone out in weeks," she'd say. Or, "It's been ages since we traveled anywhere nice." At first, I tried to reassure her. I told her that this was temporary, that once the business took off, we could have all the luxuries we wanted. But the comments didn't stop. They turned into complaints, and then outright accusations. She started comparing me to her friends' boyfriends, saying things like, "Do you know what Sarah's boyfriend got her for her birthday? A weekend in Paris. And here I am, getting ramen noodles and Netflix." She'd roll her eyes when I talked about work and openly dismiss my progress as insignificant. One night, after I spent hours explaining a breakthrough I'd had with the business, she cut me off and said, "You're putting all this effort into something that's never going to work. When are you going to grow up and get a real job?" The breaking point came during an argument. Lisa told me, "I can't keep doing this. You're never going to make it, and I'm not wasting my life waiting for you to figure it out." A week later, she left me for an older guy who was already wealthy and could give her the life she wanted. I'll admit, I was crushed. I loved Lisa, and her leaving felt like a betrayal. But at the same time, it gave me clarity. If she couldn't stick with me through the tough times, then she didn't deserve to be there when things got better. After Lisa left, I was determined to prove her wrong. Not just for her, but for myself. I threw myself into my work like never before. I stopped going out, cut ties with distractions, and devoted every waking hour to building my company. There were moments when I doubted myself, when I thought Lisa might have been right, and when I felt completely alone. But every time I felt like quitting, I thought about her words, "You're never going to make it," and I used that as fuel to keep going. During those 3 years, something unexpected happened. I reconnected with an old friend, Emily, 30 female. Emily and I had known each other since college, but we'd fallen out of touch over the years. We bumped into each other at a grocery shop, and from the moment we started talking, it felt like no time had passed. Emily was nothing like Lisa. Where Lisa had been glamorous and demanding, Emily was simple and down to earth. She wasn't interested in designer clothes or fancy dinners. She cared about the little things, like spending time together, having meaningful conversations, and building something real. When I told her about my startup, she didn't laugh or dismiss it. Instead, she said, "That sounds amazing. I know you can do it." As we started spending more time together, Emily's support became a lifeline. She didn't just believe in my dream, she actively encouraged it. When I was pulling all-nighters, she'd show up with coffee and sandwiches to keep me going. When I hit roadblocks, she'd listen patiently and help me brainstorm solutions. Emily didn't care that I was broke or that I couldn't take her on extravagant dates. All she cared about was me. I'll never forget one particular night. I was feeling completely defeated after a potential investor backed out at the last minute. Emily came over, brought takeout, and said, "It's just a setback. You've got something incredible here, and I know you'll find the right person to believe in it." Her words stayed with me, and she was right. I did find the right investor, and it changed everything. Fast forward 3 years, and my hard work finally paid off. My startup took off in a way I could have only dreamed of. After years of grinding, I landed a deal that changed my life. My company was acquired by a major corporation, and overnight, I went from scraping by to being a millionaire. It was surreal. After selling my company, I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Emily. She had been my rock through the toughest times, and I wanted to give her the world. I proposed with a 2-carat diamond ring, and she said yes. A few months later, we got married in a small but beautiful ceremony surrounded by family and close friends. As a wedding gift, I surprised Emily with a brand new Mercedes. She had never asked for anything like that. She was happy driving her old beat-up car, but I wanted to spoil her. She deserved it for all the love and support she'd given me when I had nothing to offer but my dreams. Last weekend, Emily and I were at a shopping mall, loading bags into her new car. I had just opened the passenger door for her when I heard a voice behind me. I turned around and saw Lisa. She looked as stunning as ever, but the moment she saw me, her expression changed. Her eyes flicked from the car to Emily and then back to me. With a fake smile, Lisa said, "Oh, hey, long time no see. How are you doing? Looks like your startup did well." I smiled back and replied, "Yeah, it did. By the way, this is my wife, Emily." Lisa's eyes zeroed in on Emily's engagement ring, which I will admit it's hard not to notice, and the car, and I could practically see the gears turning in her head. Then she asked, "Is this your car?" I couldn't resist. I said, "No, it's my wife's. I bought it for her as a wedding present." The look on Lisa's face was priceless. She muttered something like, "Wow, that's nice," and quickly excused herself. Emily, who had no idea who Lisa was, just smiled and asked why I was grinning like an idiot for the rest of the day. Later that night, I got a message from Lisa on Facebook. She started with small talk, asking how I'd been and saying it was great to see me. Then she shifted gears. She said she missed the old times and regretted how things ended. She even suggested that we meet up to reminisce about the good old days. I laughed out loud. The old times she missed? The ones where she belittled me, dismissed my dreams, and abandoned me when I needed support. I couldn't believe the audacity. I decided to reply. I wrote, "Lisa, I think you're confusing the past. Those times weren't good for me. You left me when I needed support the most, and you didn't believe in me. Honestly, you should be embarrassed to even talk to me now, knowing I'm a married man. My wife is an amazing woman who stood by me when I had nothing. Shame on you for trying to worm your way back into my life now that I'm successful." A few minutes later, Lisa responded, calling me cruel and heartless. She accused me of being vindictive and said she didn't deserve to be spoken to that way. I didn't reply again. I figured there was no point. She had already made her bed. Part of me wonders if I could have handled the situation differently. Maybe I didn't need to call her out so harshly. But at the same time, I feel like Lisa's behavior was incredibly disrespectful. Not just to me, but to my wife, who has been nothing but supportive and loving. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for laughing at my ex when she tried to worm her way back into my life after seeing my success? Lisa left OP when times were tough because she didn't see OP's potential or value beyond what OP could materially provide. She wanted the good times without putting in the effort or sacrifice to earn them with OP. Now that she sees what she's missed out on, she's trying to weasel her way back in. I think OP handled it perfectly. OP stood up for himself and for his wife, who deserved all the credit for sticking by him. Also, what OP said was nothing but the truth. Yeah, truth hurts sometimes. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. Honestly, this was the perfect karmic moment. Lisa didn't just leave you. She actively belittled your dreams and tried to make you feel worthless. It's laughable that she thinks she can waltz back into your life after everything she did, especially when you're married now. Calling her out was fair. She needed to hear the truth about how her choices had consequences. Also, shout out to your wife, Emily. She sounds like an absolute gem, and it's clear you value her as you should. Everyone sucks here, kind of. Lisa is definitely the bigger a-hole here, no question. She abandoned you when you were struggling, which says everything about her character. However, your message to her was pretty brutal. While I get why you're angry and feel vindicated, you could have just ignored her entirely, or said, "I'm happy with my life now, please don't contact me again." Sometimes silence is more powerful than words. That said, congrats on your success and your marriage. You've clearly come a long way. Not the a-hole. Good on you for standing up for yourself and putting Lisa in her place. She called you cruel because she didn't like hearing the truth. She expected you to fall for her fake nostalgia, but you didn't take the bait. Honestly, she should have been embarrassed to even message you after everything she did. Emily sounds like an incredible partner, and I'm so glad you found someone who values you for who you are, not what you can give her. Keep living your best life. You earned it. I married my ex-husband when I was 19, almost 20. It was not a great marriage to say the least. He began cheating on me a few months after our honeymoon with one of his ex-girlfriends, Laura, currently 34. I did not know about this until 5 years after we married. Anyways, my ex and I had 2 sons, 11 and 9 months. We separated 1.5 years ago and divorced less than a year ago. Throughout our 10-year marriage, my husband has been seeing Laura. Even after I found out, we stayed together for the sake of my 2 sons. But last year was when I could not take it anymore, and we got a divorce. Less than 6 months after our divorce was finalized, my husband married Laura. She was about 3-4 months pregnant at the time. Their baby son is now almost 1 month old. I visited the child when I took my sons to see their new baby brother at the hospital. Yesterday, I received a call from my ex-husband. He asked if I wanted to be the godmother of their son. I would be one of 2 godmothers. He said it would be a way of mending old mistakes, and that it would be a symbol of forgiveness between the 2 of us. I asked him if Laura was even okay with this idea, and he said that she was. I'm not sure what to make of all this. My ex-husband sounded as if he genuinely wanted me to be the godmother, but I feel like it's a form of insult. Or am I just being paranoid and petty? By mending old mistakes, and as a symbol of forgiveness, he wants to make you godmother to his decade-long mistress kid? No, he doesn't get to choose when you forgive him. This isn't mending old mistakes. It's image rescue, damage control. Oh look, my ex-wife is the new kid's godmother. You can all go back to thinking I'm a good guy again. It all worked out for the best. In fact, my decade-long betrayal was the best thing to ever happen. Look how happy we all are. Totally justifiable that I betrayed my family, broke my ex-wife's heart, shattered her life, and wasted 10 years of her life. Tell him to duck off. Last year, my brother Adam, 27, was diagnosed with cancer. It was fortunately a relatively treatable cancer, and his prognosis was always quite positive. What made matters more complicated was that he was due to get married in September. They had planned a wedding which was well beyond their means at the best of times, and once he was signed off work, there was no chance of them being able to afford it on their own. Rather than scale down, a friend started a crowdfunder to help pay for the wedding. Friends and family were generous, and the wedding was able to go ahead. His fiancée, Beth, 23, worked her butt off to support him, pulling extra hours and making sure that he didn't have to lift a finger while going through chemo. She's a great girl and has always been too good for him. A little background on Adam. He's 3 years younger than me and has always gotten away with murder. He got kicked out of school. My parents made sure it wasn't a big deal for him. He got fired from multiple jobs. I risked my reputation getting him a job at my office. He stopped showing up and went no contact, probably setting my career back considerably by association. I forgave him. He cheated on his fiancée. She forgave him. In short, he's never had to face consequences. He used to steal from me when we were kids, and my parents would always state, "Well, you can't prove it. He's an entitled little punk, and it's all of our faults for letting him be this way." He has never been apologetic for this behavior, but I guess all of the people around him have normalized it by enabling him. My parents continue to do so, dismissing it with, "That's just the way he is," or "He's still your brother." Shortly after the crowdfunder ends, my parents buy Adam a motorcycle. I point out how awful this looks, and that the money should have gone on the wedding instead of asking family and friends for support. They argue that he's been very ill and deserves to be happy. So the extravagant wedding goes ahead. I pay for suits and several completely unnecessary extras, plus 2 nights in an incredibly fancy hotel. The wedding goes smoothly. 3 weeks later, I get a call from my parents. Adam has been shagging his ex, Carol, 25, behind Beth's back. Carol is married with 3 young children. I give him hell on the phone and tell him I am not interested in speaking to him. Over the coming weeks, it turns out that this has been going on since shortly after he was diagnosed, long before the wedding. His ex got in touch when she heard he was ill, and one thing led to another. Adam now has no place to live, and my parents take him in. I tell them that again, they are enabling his behavior, but I understand they don't want their son to be left out on the streets, particularly while still dealing with some of the after effects of chemo. Shortly after this, he is found to be in remission and is allowed back to work. Carol is a terrible person. She was part of our group when we were all younger, and no one has a good word to say about her. She tried to baby trap Adam when they were together initially. Fortunately, he realized what was going on and ditched her. A year later, she's married to another guy and has a baby. When my parents took Adam in, they told him and me that Carol would not be welcome in their house. They still regularly talk to Beth and treat her like one of the family, incredibly sympathetic to the crap Adam and Carol has put her through. However, this has now cooled, and my mom in particular is being friendly with Carol, down to doing each other's hair. Carol is now part of the family. I am disgusted by this and refuse to talk to my brother or even be in the same vicinity of Carol. Because I live in the next town over, it's easier for my parents to distance themselves from me. I have left it by saying that I will talk to Adam once he apologizes personally to every single person at the wedding, because in my eyes, he lied to each and every person there and pays me back the money I spent. He clearly has no intention of doing this. Despite now being perfectly healthy, he is quite comfortable using the fact that he has had cancer as his trump card to get my parents to forgive him of all his sins and pay for everything for him. I have no idea how much they spent on that sham of a wedding, but it would likely have reached 5 figures. Now to the issue at hand. Next month, my grandfather wants to get the whole extended family together to celebrate what would have been my Nan's 80th birthday. She has been dead 7 years. Adam and Carol will be there. I refuse to be seen to endorse their behavior by sharing a room or table with her, and I don't want my extended family to think that I'm continuing to enable his crappy behavior like my parents are. My parents think I'm being ridiculous, and that I should forgive him as he's family. They believe that after all he's been through, the most important thing is that he's happy. He can do no harm, despite clearly taking advantage of them and having a trail of destruction and broken relationships behind him. He's always forgiven. If I don't go, I'll upset my dad and grandfather while they are grieving their mother, wife. This will not be Adam and Carol's fault. It will be mine. It's easier to blame me for being awkward than to face up to the reality of how much of a horrible person their son is, particularly as I'm independent and in the next town over. I feel like if I go, I'll spend the whole time angry and will be ostracized for not talking to them. And if I refuse to attend, my dad and grandfather will be upset with me for not swallowing my pride. I can't win. This is not only causing tension for me, but also for my partner of 12 years, who completely agrees with everything I've said, but is suffering from the strain this is causing with my family and the stress this is causing me. Who will ostracize you if you ignore Adam and Carol? Because I would go to the get-together. It is for your grandparents, not Adam. If he wants to act crappily, let him. You act with politeness. Bean dip everyone who brings up sensitive subjects, and gray rock the hell out of Adam and Carol, and possibly your parents. There will be more people there to talk to. Go see Aunt Grace. If Adam and Carol rolls up to your convo, leave it politely. Oh, look, there's Cousin Barry. I should go say hi. Keep doing it. If you have to talk to them, gray rock it. Treat them like a stranger you've just met. Polite, but non-committal. You're not ignoring them, but you're also not engaging them. It is one event right now to get through before you can go back to no contact. Overview. Me and my wife have been married for 3 years, together for 8, and have a 5-year-old daughter. Back in June, July of last year, my 34 male, wife, 31 female, started talking to another man. She made statements that she was unhappy. I understood where she was coming from, and we began talking to resolve things. That first man, who she dated when she was younger, turned out to just be using her to play out sexting fantasies. She was devastated when she approached him about a relationship, and he straight told her what the situation was. I did what I could to comfort her and to continue to try to work on us. Now, I know a lot of this is dumb on my part, but I was willing to work on us and agreed to couples counseling, which I had booked to start middle of July, just a couple weeks away at that point. Early June, one of her friends had given this guy, let's call him Chad, her phone number, and he texted her while we were together, and I of course asked, what the duck? We talked and agreed to do counseling, but also that we would explore an open type of relationship. Again, I know, dumb at that point. So they started talking and seeing each other. When she was with him, she started having zero concern for her daughter. Some examples. She took our only running car and went to the river with the guarantee she would be back in time to pick up our daughter from preschool. Nope. Didn't show up till hours later. Drunk, of course, and full of excuses. I had to drive an uninsured, unlicensed work truck to go pick up my daughter. She missed multiple doctor's appointments that she told our daughter she would be at. Again, mostly due to drinking. Once was due to weather, but we used to live in Montana, and she would regularly drive in multiple feet of snow in a Volkswagen Bug with no issues. But apparently, the SUV she was now driving couldn't make it. Many times telling our daughter she would show up and not, or show up hungover. I could go on, but I think I made enough of a point here. We did the counseling thing, but she put zero effort into it. I had a business trip where I would be gone for a week. When I landed after an 8-hour plane ride, I called her with no answer. Called again, and she was obviously rushing me off the phone, and I'm not dumb. She's not a good liar. Was later verified she had this guy at our house, while our daughter was asleep. Our house was supposed to be an us zone. She denied this for months. At some point, we had a talk about her and Chad's relationship, and what it was and where it was going. If he fully knew everything. Her answer was that he knew about us and the situation. He had told her that he was fine with how things were, but he would not get into a relationship as things were, but would have no issues dating a single mom. A few days, maybe a week go by, and she says it's over, she's done. I say, let's give us a couple weeks to try and work on things while our daughter is with her grandparents visiting. She agreed to that. We had plans and already paid for a trip to make up for our honeymoon, which we missed due to virus. We agreed to go and try to give us time to work on us. Of course, the whole time, all she wanted to do was text Chad the whole week we were there. In the last couple days we were there, she told me it was over and done, and she's gonna be with Chad. So lots of fighting and yada yada yada. On return, she had plans to go with friends to a music festival, girls-only kind of trip. I had asked if I could go, and she said it's a girls-only trip. But of course, she invited Chad to go. When she got back, she said she was leaving and moving out. She cashed out her retirement fund, got an apartment, but still hung around our house for weeks after she signed her lease, texting Chad and being unpleasant, let's say. I finally had to tell her if she's gonna leave, she needs to leave, which she did the next day. She has been in school to finish her degree. For the last 2 years, I've been the only one working, so she could concentrate on school. She did have her student loans, which her living expenses per semester would cover less than 1 month of our expenses. I have a wonderful job where I've worked my way up and helped build the company. My job allows me to work whenever I want, and I have always worked around her schedule to make sure our daughter is cared for. Our daughter has been my #1 priority. I have continued to work around her schedule, no questions asked, to keep a 50-50 parenting agreement. Now, where I need advice, because I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, and the ex and Chad make it seem like they aren't asking anything unreasonable. Chad wants to move to the East Coast, 3,000 miles away, where I nor my ex know anybody, but Chad does. Chad has family there. He is looking to buy a house and can transfer with his company laterally with seemingly no pay cut. Chad wants my ex to move with him. Of course, for that to happen, my ex, technically still my wife as the divorce is not final yet, needs me to agree to move as well. I would have to leave my job. Equivalent work out there that I have had offers on. I would be taking a 64% pay cut. I don't know what these jobs would be like, and I am apparently still expected to work around their schedules. My industry, a lot of the work involves traveling, so most likely with another company, I would still be expected to be away for 2 to 3 weeks at a time. So I would have to take an even larger pay cut to be able to not travel. Am I crazy? Is there not a lot being asked of me? The two of them act like it's not a big deal and there should be no problem. Of course, they are treating me like I'm the bad guy, but I can't help but think, hey, isolation is a tactic in A relationships. Please tell me how dumb I am for even considering this. I'm assuming you need to move so that your daughter can go back and forth between your homes. Say no. Screw them if they want to treat you like the bad guy. You have to do what is best for you. This is your life, the only one you get. Don't be pushed around by a-holes into a bad situation. You should not move. Let her and Chad move and leave your child with you. You also should talk with your attorney about taking full custody of your child, based on your soon-to-be ex-wife's drinking and abandonment of the child. You are being used. She is walking all over you, and you need to document everything and give it to your attorney. The court will use that to determine the well-being of your child. Also include her management of money and details about Chad.